Hello everyone and welcome to First In Weasels over Syria, a brand new campaign for the F-16 in DCS World, which I am really excited about. This campaign sees us playing Forrest of the 79th Fighter Squadron, who is a Weasel. That is one of these fighter pilots who goes in specifically to shut down SAM sites, doing so by either distracting the SAM sites, overwhelming them with electronic countermeasures, or blowing them up. Either way, this is a really fun idea and I'm really looking forward to it. I really like doing SIAD and DIAD operations and very much want to see a campaign that's dedicated to those. Now this campaign is set in a little bit of an alternate history version of the recent Syrian conflict. This is part of the same extended storyline as the Operation Persian Freedom campaign and takes part at the same time as Operation Cerberus North. So broadly similar to our own timeline, but with some key differences, notably the invasion of Iran takes place in this timeline. And so this one still has an outbreak of conflict in Syria, very much like our own. Very much like our own, it ends up being split between Syrian forces, pro-democracy Syrian democratic forces, and Islamic extremists, which in this are just referred to the SIA. And then on top of that, you have the Kurdish YPG militia in the far north. So just like our own timeline, very complicated war, but where this differs is we have two lots of boots on the ground from other foreign superpowers. Russia has deployed forces to support the Syrian-controlled government, and they're along the Syrian coastline. Meanwhile, NATO is deploying forces to respond and protect the SDF. So we're not going to be at war with Russia, at least not at first, we'll see where the campaign goes, but we'll be fighting Syria, as well as the SIA, Islamic extremist militia in the north. For this we're based in Jordan, and the background of our immediate start to this campaign is that a no-fly zone has been declared over Syria. The problem being that NATO can't really enforce the no-fly zone very easily with the amount of Syrian SAMs that are in the area, and so the Weasels have been called in to take out the SAMs so that fighters can start pushing into Syria itself and therefore enforce this no-fly zone. So all in all, a really cool setup for a campaign, and for this first mission we're starting off with things being pretty quiet. We're flying out of H4 base in northern Jordan, and then we're going to proceed to do a training exercise where we take on simulated targets. Targets have been set up at the old H3 airbase, which are to simulate an SA2 site, and our role is to take out the simulated radar there. These aren't very sophisticated simulated systems, it's just basically a radar repeater, and then a whole load of containers that are going to be simulating the actual SAM launchers themselves, which will be firing white smoke flares in order to indicate launches. Otherwise everything is being controlled by a game master who will tell us if we get shot down and so on. So we know the target, we're going in with a game plan ahead of time. We are going in two elements. The first element will go in, stay high, try to attract the SAM fire and go evasive. Meanwhile, my element will dive down to the deck and make a run at the SAM site, doing a pop-up maneuver at the last moment in order to drop bombs on the radar dish and then evac to the south. So that's the idea. Let's jump in and see how it goes.
Sword 1-1, Sword 2-1 approaching RV point.
Copy 2-1. Sword flight form up. We're pushing for waypoint 2, Angels 2-5. Forrest, I want your element in 1 mile trail.
Sword 2-1.
Okay, Sword flight. All airspace within the Syria theater is controlled by the ABCCC Sentinel. Once clear of H4CA, we must declare ourselves on mission to Sentinel. Sword 2-1, I want you to check our flight in now.
Sword 2-1. Sentinel, Sword 2-1, checking in, flight of 4 F-16s on mission number 0423, inbound on the Swartzy.
Sword 2-1, you are clear to proceed. Be advised, sailing patrols are airborne north of your position. Magic is monitoring. We will update you as needed.
Copy all, Sentinel. Sword 2-1 out.
Off to our left is Syria. The border is visible at our 10 o'clock, clearly marked by the berm that runs parallel to the road running northeast. The long, thin lake at 11 o'clock lies within the Jordanian side of the border, so it's a useful landmark to reference. The Jords are deployed quite heavily in this area. Not surprising considering what's going on down in Syria. They're also maintaining a cap of F-16s around the clock. To our 3 o'clock is a large lake. This lake is around 6 miles north of H4, and it's another useful reference point to help orient yourself to home. As we return to H4, we'll use 2 initial points to approach the base. Approach Alpha is a wind farm near a small lake. You might have seen it off to our right as we made the low-level departure from runway 28. Approach Bravo might just be visible in the distance beyond the lake. It's a shale oil facility, usually easy enough to ID from all the smoke it's kicking out. It's the smoke to the left as we look at it. The smoke to the right is from a factory complex in Rouage. Other than scattered settlements and industry, that's about all there is to see out here.
Sure is remote. What an assignment. Miles and miles of flat desert. We'll be dying to get into Syria just to see some scenery. Never mind the action.
Well, there'll be plenty of that to go around before long, I'm sure. Syrian SAMs keep coming up when the JSTF is around the no-fly zone. We'll be needed up north before long, I'm sure.
Ha, no doubt.
So the Swartzy looks like quite the playground. Miles and miles of empty space to train in. It'll be like being back in Nevada.
I don't think the flying will be quite that good, but it's always good to get the chance to drop live ordnance.
Doubt it's quite as well set up as the NTTR.
Not a chance. The emitters and targets aren't quite as realistic as we're used to. We'll have to make do with old pickups and containers today, but they'll do the job.
And we've still got an instrument in range at least. Kinda cool how the old H3 complex has been repurposed.
Yeah, the place has quite the history of being bombed. The H3 complex as it became was built back in the 70s. It consisted of the main base plus 2 dispersal fields and highway landing strips. The Iranians attacked it during their war with Iraq. Then we attacked it again in 91. It was a chemical weapons storage site back then. We hit it again during Southern Watch before an OIF finally capturing it. Since then it's been abandoned and left to the desert.
Yep, and now it's our turn. Let's see if we can't add a few more craters to the landscape, huh?
I like the enthusiasm. Sure we will.
Quite a situation we find ourselves in over here. Syrians, the SIA, the Russians, the JSTF. What happened to clear front lines and an obvious enemy?
Quite a mess we find ourselves in over here.
Well, Syria's certainly got its problems, but at least our primary mission is clear enough.
Oh yeah, blowing up SAMs. That's what we do best. Whole thing seems pretty rushed though. The 6 of us are the only dedicated Weasels out here, and we're the last to the party. Sounds like we've got a no-fly zone that we're struggling to enforce right now. We're supposed to be the first in, remember?
You'll get no argument from me, Rotor, but we're here now.
What's with this Operation Jackal that just kicked off? I didn't catch all the details.
It's the start of a big push against the SIA. We're moving from a more reactive CAS mindset to a more aggressive footing, targeting more strategic SIA assets such as economic and logistic targets.
Expect we'll be out over the Euphrates for too long then.
Wouldn't bet against it.
Sure would be pleased to get a chance to say hi to the SIA. They won't know what hit them. We thought it'd be rocking. Some old Soviet junk? Probably barely even know how to use that stuff.
Well, SA-8s and 6s. Older but still dangerous in the right hands. I guess that's the big question. Can they operate them competently?
No, we'll find out before too long, I'm sure. and I know who my money's on.
Okay, Flight, we're approaching the border into Iraq. Push uniform to Games Master.
1-2 set. 2-2 set.
2-1 set.
Games Master Sword 1-1, flight of 4 F-16s checking in as fragged on approach to Spark Seat.
Copy, Sword 1, range is clear and targets are set. You are clear for unrestricted gliding within the AO. Weapons released within the range has been authorized. Monitor this frequency at all times. Games Master will call kills on blue units if you deem evasive measures to be inadequate.
Copy all, Games Master. Sword is proceeding. Sword 2, go combat spread 1 mile left.
Sword 2-1.
Okay, Flight, remember what we briefed. Once engaged by the SA-2, Sword 1 will break south and stay high on the edge of the threat ring. Sword 2 will break north and dive for the deck. Watch your spacing and keep track of your wingman. Flight, fence in. Sword 1-1 fenced. Flight, roll call.
Sword 1-2.
Sword 2-1.
2-2.
Approaching Mez, music on.
Music on.
Music on.
Music on. Sword 1-2. 1-2. 12 o'clock.
Sword 1-1, Spike 2, 12 o'clock. Sword 1 breaking south. Sword 2 break north, commence attack.
So here our actual attack begins, and our briefing is to dive down to a low level here. Maybe just see a little white puff in the top right of the screen. That is the simulated missiles firing. They're just smoke charges that are going off. Now, my direction here is this road that will lead me along to the IP. I did have to repeat this mission a few times, not because anything's wrong with the mission, but because there's an issue with the F-16, in that with these bombs, the CBU-87s, both the CCIP and the CCRP indicators are both wrong. They both massively underestimate the flight time of the bombs, and so the bombs consistently hit about 150 meters or 150 feet ahead of where you're aiming. And I've tried that several times, and it just seems to be a consistent thing. Looked online, it was certainly an issue 2 years ago. It was meant to be fixed, but apparently isn't. Either way, what I've found is a good workaround for now is to just do a very high angle diving attack, and that minimises this error. So that's what I'm going for here, going low level. Here I start to do the pop-up to gain some altitude so I can dive in and still not crash into the ground when I do. The briefing was to do a pop-up attack anyway. I don't think it was supposed to be this extreme, but it works, so this is my attempt. Sword sight is still engaging the other flight, so roll in here, try and line up, and at the same time I'm aiming a little bit short. The radar is at the centre of this circle.
Sword 2-1 is in.
So pickle away 1, double check that the bomb has come off the rail there. And just get the hit there. Then evac into the south.
Off target.
Outstanding, Sword 2. Outstanding.
So yeah, really happy that I managed to actually manage that at this time. As I said, repeated the mission a few times to get that right, but there we go, and just evacuating here low level. But we're not done yet.
Sword 2-2, Spike, SA-3.
Sword 2-2 break left. 1 breaking right. Music on. Sierra Papa.
Use the gun.
Sword 1, Sword 2. SA-3 online in the vicinity of the H3 southwest site.
Copy, 2. You have the fuel to make a run at it?
So I just checked there, I've got plenty of fuel here. I did burn a lot by being in most of the afterburner there, but decided, yep, let's go for this.
Firm lead, let's do it.
Okay, Sword Flight, let's get back to work. We're going to locate and kill the SA-3 around the H3 southwest site. Stand by for base coordinates. North, tree 244, decimal 656. East, 039, tree 6, decimal 217. 2671 feet. We're going to work this as a 4-ship and overwhelm it from 4 directions. Bio attack from the west. Sword 1-2, arc south. Sword 2-1, arc east, and 2-2 north. SA-3 Mez is 10 miles, so keep out of range as you maneuver into position. We'll attack in elements. While one element is attacking, the other will try and hold the radar's attention. Call attacking as you go hot on the target, defending if you break away. Games Master will call any kills against it.
Sword 1-2.
Sword 2-1. Sword 2-1 in position.
Sword 1 attacking SA-3, H3 south.
So here we go, it does take me a bit to get into position. I just edit waypoint 4. I do have to look up mid-mission how to edit waypoints since I forgot. But do manage to get visual ID on the target before we go in here. Can just see it on the TGP display there. Just going back over to CCIP for the reasons I explained before. Unfortunately that does move the targeting pod, but at least now I know where I'm going for.
Sword 1-2, missile launch. SA-3, H3
Sword
south.
1 defending SA-3. Sword 2 get a mark point on the launch position.
Copy. Sword 2 attacking SA-3, H3 south.
Already know where it is, so I don't need to worry about putting an additional mark point on, but turn in and head in there.
Horseshoe-shaped revetment, north corner of the base.
And I see enough it does give us a audio description, just in case we did miss it. Now, trying to maintain some altitude here, but also trying to keep sight of it, so just dipping under this cloud so I can look while I'm heading in. Don't know if this is the best approach, but it's the one I decided on. Do want to maintain altitude so I can do that diving attack again. See it quite clearly here, 1 radar in the middle and then 4 pretend launchers around the outside. The pretend launchers are just containers.
SAM launch, SA-3, H3 south.
And that is the fake launch. I need to turn to defend here. So I brake, try and notch the target, notch the radar here. Diving for the deck. Doing my best to pretend what I'd do if there was a missile out. And then at this point I'm just extending away to avoid any follow-up shots. In reality I'd do my best to keep an eye on the missiles, but there I just decided that was probably enough for the simulation, and turns out to be okay, so I can just extend out here, regain a little bit of altitude after a while, and then recover back to my IP position while the other element goes in. So in the RWR I am occasionally being pinged, but not too bad.
H3 south. Sword 1-2 defending.
1 is tally on launch site, engaging.
So here 1-1 goes in for his attack run while it's firing at his wingman.
Sword 1 is off. Kill the launcher. Radar is still up about 50 meters northeast of the smoke. Sword 2, press.
Sword 2 attacking SA3, H3 south.
So you can see the smoke plume from Sword 1-1's bomb drop there, but he's missed the radar. He's just killed one of the launchers. The site's still dangerous since it's got 4 others. This time I try a slightly different approach. I don't think this was actually appropriate, but I decided, well, the first time I ran in I did a low level pass and that worked, so I'm going to try doing another low level pop-up maneuver here. It turns out afterwards this wouldn't be the best thing since the SA3s can lock at low altitude, so this wasn't having the same effect it would against the SA2. But still had a go at it.
Sword 2-2, go defensive.
This time the SA3 engages my wingman. I do make a bit of a mistake here. I don't climb enough here. So as I dive back in, you can see I'm nowhere near the same steep angle that I was before.
Altitude.
And so even trying to drop with quite a bit of lead, as I turn around and look, you can see I barely catch it at the end.
Radar is down. Good work, Sword Flight.
But it does turn out it was just within splash radius, and so I managed to get the kill.
Sword 1-1 at rally. Sword Flight then south. Push waypoint 6, Angels 2-5. Games Master, Sword Flight checking out of the Swartzy. We'll call you up when back for debrief. Nice working with you.
Copy, Sword 1. Likewise. Flight safe. You are clear to depart.
Sword 2-1, we're clearing the Swartzy. Check us back in with Sentinel.
Sword 2-1. Sentinel, Sword Flight is egressing Swartzy and inbound on H4, Angels 2-5.
Sword Flight clear to proceed, Angels 2-5. Whew, nice surprise you threw back there, boss.
Ha! Glad you liked it. I asked Games Master to throw a surprise at us on the way out. They sure came through. Well, hopefully that blew away some of the cobwebs. Attacking SAMs is definitely a skill that degrades if you don't use it. Good work with the SA-2. We exploited its lack of ability to track low-flying targets. An effective strategy for sure, but we still have to be mindful of low-level threats. Here we saw how loitering just on the edge of the engagement range baited the operators into firing, a useful distraction tactic, and also helpful in forcing the SAM site to reveal its exact position. The SA-3 is a lot more dangerous than the guidelines. Although more limited in range, its missiles are much more of a threat than with the SA-2. It lacks the low-level vulnerability of the SA-2, but today we switched up tactics and went with a saturation attack from multiple attack axes. Remember that even though the Syrians had lots of older SAMs like we've seen today, they've still got plenty of more modern systems as well. Make sure you understand the vulnerabilities of all systems and attack where they're weakest.
What's the EW situation up north? Are we expecting to see some Growler support or something? Sure would make the job easier when we come up against the double-digit systems.
When we need it, we'll have it. I'm assured of this.
Roger that. So, boss, when are we going to be in the action for real?
Soon enough, Rotor, soon enough. With the operation kicking off against the SIA and the demand for support around the no-fly zones, I can't see us having to wait too long.
Let's hope not. I can't face weeks of sitting around this desert waiting for something to do. Me neither, man. Why not get for a trip to Nellis right now? Get me some of that good Vegas life.
What, and miss the wife out here?
Well, I wouldn't want to miss out on the flying, but I could pass on life at H4.
Well, take it from me, after seeing action in both OIF and OPF, you'll never have flying quite like you do on an operation like this.
You saw a lot of action in Purge of Freedom, didn't you, Popeye?
That's right. Weasels were right in the middle of the opening phase of OPF. Part of the wave that kicked the door open over mainland Iran at the start.
Must have been pretty hairy. The Iranians had some impressive equipment.
Well, at the start it was. Had a few S-300s to take out early on, but we had a solid plan, plenty of EW support, and, well, we're just better at this than anyone else. I guarantee you're better trained at killing SAMs than the SAM operators are at killing you.
A lot more of them than us, though.
Okay, we're inbound on H4. I've done this approach more than the rest of you, so Sword 2-1, I want you to take the lead and bring us on in. First step is to declare to H4 approach that we're inbound. Typically, do this around 50 miles out and before you reach the 30-mile boundary of H4 control airspace. Do it now. I'll follow you in.
And I'm skipping over it here for the sake of the video, but this does then have a really detailed ATC, both on takeoff and landing. Really, really good custom ATC they've put in that gets you to enter a holding pattern, then gets you to land one at a time. Really, really nicely done. Really puts DCS's inbuilt ATC to shame. And I follow the instructions, I land, and all good. That is mission 1 accomplished, and I had an absolute blast. As I said, I did have to redo this mission a few times. That is because of this weird overshooting bug with the CCIP and CCRP with these particular bombs. It's been identified before, but doesn't seem to have been fixed in the last 2 years, which is a bit of a pity. If anyone does know how to get the cluster bombs to work properly, please do let me know. Otherwise, I did manage to work around there, just aiming a little short. And otherwise, I had an absolute blast. This is an amazingly detailed, amazingly polished first mission. The voice acting is incredible. The mission objectives are really cool, really involved. For an opening mission that is just a training mission, I wasn't expecting much, but this is one of the best campaign missions I've played in DCS, period. And so I am really looking forward to doing a lot more of this campaign going forward. I hope you are all enjoying this, and I hope to catch you in a future video. Until then, remember to be kind to yourselves and everyone else. Cheers.